If there's one thing that we all have in common in music production, it's that we all want to make music that's aesthetically pleasing to the ear and totally immersive. We can do this through use of frequency and the tools we have available. But if you're struggling with the basics of sound design, what does it take to add this level of detail? In today's video, we're going to talk about the topic of FM, or frequency modulation, and frequency separation. What are they? Why do you need to use it? And ultimately, how to use FM synthesis to add more detail to our ambient music. FM synthesis isn't exactly new. Synthesizers like the GS1 and the DX7 are the obvious first examples going all the way back to the early 80s, but nowadays we have a form of FM built right into the synths by way of a spectral distortion mode that allows us to use FM from various parts of the synth. But the question is, why do we need to use this? First of all, FM is a fantastic source of waveform manipulation if we want to go beyond our standard wavetable shape and get some really interesting material that we can use on the high end of the frequency spectrum, allowing other elements like basses, pads, and mid-range sequences to shine through. So in today's video, we're going to build a pad from scratch that uses this style of FM so you guys can use these techniques in your own productions. That being said, what's up? My name is Chris from Signs of Life. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to this channel with the bell notification on so you can keep up to date with all the latest in the Signs of Life universe. Before we get started, I'd like to mention that this video was inspired by a track called Ladder of Dust on the new album Pillars of Light from Stellarium on Exosphere. This track, along with the others, are fantastic examples of frequency separation and high quality sound design. So I highly encourage you to go support the artist and buy this album on Bandcamp. I'll leave the link down below in the description. That being said, let's get into the topic of today's video, FM synthesis and frequency separation. Enjoy. What's up guys, Chris here from Signs of Life, back again with another ambient tutorial. In today's video, we're gonna build an FM style patch in Serum. This tutorial is pretty much inspired by the new album Pillars of Light from Stellarium. And on that album, there's a track called Ladders of Dust. And when I first heard it, I was blown away. And I thought to myself, I've got to make something like that. So that's what we're going to do here in today's video. I highly recommend that you check out the album. I'll leave the link down below in the description. It's from Stellarium, and go support the artist on Bandcamp. It's an amazing release. So anyway, I've already built a patch like that. It's sort of an FM style pad in Serum. And so I'm going to play that for a little bit, and then the other side, we're going to knit this thing and build our own from scratch so you guys can see exactly how it's made. All right, here we go. As you can hear, it's like super high-end, like glassy FM style. And you know, this pad, could be played at a really low volume. That's sometimes all that you need to fill up the high end. Now, I see a lot of artists out here who are suffering from either too much high-end information or not enough. And what I mean by high-end information is just sort of noise or, frequency on the upper end of the spectrum, everything above, say, 5 or 6K, right? So if you can find a balance between having that information up there and not too much, it's really going to add a lot of immersive quality to your tracks. You feel like you can just walk right in. If you have a strong bass, drop the mids down. You don't need too many pads, and then something on the high end to just kind of live there. It really does feel three-dimensional, right? So anyway, as you can see, there's a lot going on in this pad. Let's go ahead and create one from scratch. So let's go ahead and knit the patch from here. All right. So anyway, what we're going to do is we are going to use the FM features in Serum. Now, I know people say, oh, Serum doesn't have true FM. It's partially true. True FM is used with sine waves going into other sine waves. There's a lot of different synths that do it really well, namely Dune 3. But in this synthesizer, we do have FM coming from other sources, namely the sub-oscillator, the noise oscillator, or oscillator B. So we could use FM from a variety of sources. It's really quite amazing for sound design. So let's go ahead and grab one of these spectral waveforms. I'm going to grab, say, Ricci Mes 3. I think that's the one I used last time. Yeah, it's a nice one. And then I'm going to go ahead and just use one of these distortion modes down here at the bottom. So you can see there's like sync, bend, remap, mirror. I use these all the time, right? But when I'm doing something that's really kind of FM style or needs some really good like grit to it, I'm going to grab one of these down here at the bottom. So as you can see, we can take frequency modulation from B, that's oscillator B over here. We can do amplitude modulation, RM, and we also have FM from the noise oscillator or the sub oscillator. That's amazing, right? So we can use the sub oscillator here as our FM source, right? And turn on sub oscillator 1 or whatever, it's the only sub oscillator. And then, you can go ahead and choose a waveform. You only have 6 options here, but usually FM is done with sine waves anyway, and sine waves sometimes sound really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the level all the way down. So this oscillator is still on, it's still active, but the volume is all the way down, meaning that it's being injected into oscillator A, or its waveform is, without it being audible, which is really an important point. You can have it there, but it's better if you don't, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and up the octave here by 2, and sometimes that works better. And then go ahead and just kind of play this. We'll turn off our reverb and delay here. Let's go ahead like that. There we go. Right? So as you can hear, when I move that FM amount, it really does change the spectrum of the waveform, which is exactly what we want. Oh man, that is great. I love it. So you want to find a sweet spot there for that FM amount, right? And then you can go from there. Now let's go ahead and give it the ambient recipe here. Let's give it 3 or 4 seconds of attack, 3 or 4 seconds of decay, lower the sustain down, and then increase the release. So now we have sort of an FM pad with no filter, nothing like that. Nice and simple, right? You can go ahead and play with the octave here. You can play with the waveform shape if you want a triangle. As you can hear, it has a different effect. I'm gonna stick with the sine wave, right? And then go ahead and really dial in this amount here. Let's go with somewhere around there, okay? You can also play with the wavetable position if you want to further modulate your waveform. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the filtering. That's one of the most important parts of this. Now, Serum has your standard low pass, high pass filters, all of that. I love Serum for that. It's got band pass filters, it's got multi-filters, it's got flange filters, which you could also use for this application. But what I'm gonna use is some of these really interesting filters here in the miscellaneous section. We have a reverb, a French low pass, formant filter, band reject. But we're going to look at this comb filter here. This really interested me when I was trying to design this. So this filter, as you can see, is kind of nasty. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to have that filter in motion. You just want to stick it in one place and leave it there, and that's going to work well. So right there is pretty good. I'm happy with that, right? So we have sort of a nice start here. Now, it doesn't really have that sparkle and shine until we add noise and effects. So let's go ahead and choose a noise here. I'm going to turn off oscillator for a second so we can hear this noise. Let's go ahead and grab one of these noise samples, okay? Now we can modulate this. We can modulate all of this, right? So let's go ahead and grab an LFO and we'll do something like this. How about that? And then we're gonna go ahead and put it on 8 bars. Now I'm gonna tie that LFO to, say, the level here, okay? I'm also gonna tie it to maybe the pitch, all right? That's gonna go from there. And we can also put it on key dependent. So now with this, what we can do is we can modulate the speed so that noise is not always constant, right? How do we modulate that? Well, we can modulate it a bunch of different ways. We can use another LFO, or we could use the chaos modulator, which is over here on the global tab. So let's go ahead and lower the speed here. We're gonna leave it where it is. We're not gonna do sample and hold. We're not gonna do BPM sync. Let's just go ahead and leave it on a rate here in Hertz. And let's go ahead and use that by right-clicking and mod source, and using that as the modulation source for the timing. There we go. Now, as you can see, it's kind of fast, right? We don't want that, so we just go over to the mod matrix, and by default, I think it gets somewhere near 100%. If you just do it manually, let's go ahead and lower that down. As you can see, now it's in a nice, sporadic rate there. It's changing, it's moving faster, it's moving slower. That's nice, all right? So that, once we add all of our, details in there, it's gonna really make some nice extra content for us. Again, we can also use this as an FM modulation source. That might be interesting, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and add some effects here before we get ahead of ourselves. Let's add a compressor here. We're gonna lower it down. Now, a multi-band compressor might be a good application here. So your mileage may vary here. I'm just gonna use a single band. We're gonna go ahead and up the attack, up the release, give a little gain. There we go. Let's lower the level of this oscillator down. Now for a little bit of, harmony in here, let's add a second oscillator, okay? We're gonna go ahead and make sure that that is going through the filter. And let's go ahead and add one of these monster filters here. This one looks good, or maybe there we go. Let's use this one, all right? So this one, put it at a lower level, right? We can go ahead and modulate that with the same chaos filter that we already preset there. That's good. Just to give us a little, give us a little weight there. And we can go to the effects section. What we can do is, Serum has one main filter here. And this has all the bells and whistles. You can choose which oscillators are going into it. It's really great. What you can also do is add a second filter here, sort of an auxiliary filter, if you will. Now, this filter has all the same shapes as the main filter, right? It doesn't have all the features, though. You can see that all the same knobs aren't here. You can't select which oscillator is going through. It's just a filter at the end of the chain, right? So let's go ahead. If you wanted to, say, add like a high-pass filter here, you could do that and just make sure that you're not getting any bass frequencies. So that's nice to see. We can do that. We can also, let's just pull this up to the top here. We can also add, say, a delay. We can add phaser. We can add all kinds of stuff. Let's do it with the standard delay and increase the feedback here. Maybe we'll make this like 16th notes and make this half notes and make this dotted and the other one not. That's a good recipe. And then we can add a ping pong on it. Nice. So we're doing this all right here in Serum, right? So no external effects, just all right there in Serum. Excellent. Now, we could make it optional if you want to add the chorus here. So we could go ahead and, the chorus kind of sounds good on a pad like this. A nice slow chorus, right? We could also take the mix of the chorus and put it onto a macro by going to here and saying, all right, well, let's go to the mod matrix and say, all right, well, macro 1 could be our, let's go here and go to effects, and we'll say chorus wet amount. Yep, that's probably going to do it. So they can go like that. And so your macro could be tied to just the chorus wet amount. Right? So you can dial in the amount of chorus right from the front page. You can also do that by just kind of clicking here and just dragging over to the effects and dragging it right there. Anyway, so last thing, of course, would it be a Signs of Life video without some reverb? No, I don't think so. Let's go ahead and add a reverb here. I really like the hall reverb for this type of thing. Hall reverbs sound great. I'm gonna increase the size here ever so slowly, all right? To make it more of a hall reverb, make it a bigger space. Add some decay, add the mix. You guys know where I'm going with this. I've already added a backing track in the background. So let's go ahead and hear how this sounds along with the rest of the track. Here we go. Yes! Oh, man. It's just the perfect complement to what's going on underneath it. So, given all that I've shown you here today, hopefully you can start to build pads like this to really add detail, because these pads don't need to be loud, they don't need to be in your face, but they do hold space in a part of the frequency spectrum that the sequence and the bass inside of this track don't occupy. And therefore, it feels like you could just walk right into this track. And that's the kind of thing, if you can add it to your own sound design palette, you're gonna make music that you never dreamed of before. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Tutorials like this are so fun to make because it allows me to express things to you so you guys can add your own sound design skills and ultimately make better music. That's what it's all about. So if you want to learn more, I have exclusive content over on Patreon. There we got tons of tutorials every single week just like this. So if you like this kind of content, come check me out on our Patreon. We got track feedback sessions. I do one-on-one ambient coaching there. It's a wonderful community. Link down below in the description. And if you want to pick up Pillars of Light, of course, the link is down below in the description. Buy this album, support the artist. It's a fantastic release. And it inspired this tutorial. What can I say? Thank you guys for watching. If this video was helpful for you, or if you ended up making a pad like this, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't already, smash that like button and click that like button right there. It's right down there. Just go ahead and click it. You guys are great. Stay inspired. And as always, keep your heads in the clouds and your feet planted firmly on the ground. My name is Chris from Signs of Life. And I'll see you all in the next one.